Welcome to this presentation on the karma and character, as well as electability of the vice presidential candidates JD Vance and Tim Walz. I'm Altazar of Altazar Astrology, and I welcome you to this presentation as an exposition of how spiritual astrology reveals deeper issues about the potential identity expression, character, and personality, and professional position in the world. I've been an astrologer for almost 40 years now, and I welcome contact from any of those observing or subscribers who'd like a free introductory reading. So I'm going to display some contact information briefly, and then we'll get into this profound exposition about these vice presidential candidates for 2024. So on the screen, you'll see displayed my contact information by email, also my website, altazarastrology.com. This YouTube channel is Altazar Astrology, where I have approximately 28 videos on a range of topics. As a master astrologer, I cover everything from relationship compatibility to life purpose, career, and the timing of events in a person's life, also known as a horoscope. So a free introductory reading is available to those who contact me and mention that they have seen this video. So now I'm going to start this exposition with the charts of JD Vance, who is now Donald Trump's vice presidential candidate pick for this upcoming election in 2024. So now you should be observing the natal chart of JD Vance on the left and the chart of the United States as it's referred to as a country born on July 4th of 1776. And in the outer ring, displayed around the chart of the United States, are the birth placements of the planets for JD Vance as you see them here on the left. So let me start out by repeating, if you haven't seen any of my other videos in the past, that I'm a spiritual astrologer. I'm not doing this exposition in an attempt to be endorsing one candidate or another. However, as a spiritual astrologer, I am attempting to endorse the positive spiritual growth issues that a candidate has or does not have and potentially could be harmful or disruptive. So as a spiritual astrologer, we look at a natal chart, such as JD Vance, and I should point out, I don't have his accurate birth time. And for people who don't know their birth time, we use 12 noon, the midpoint of the day. But otherwise, most of the planetary positions are accurate enough to really ascertain a person's important karmic identity, character issues, and gifts, talents, or abilities. So when I do a life purpose reading for any client, this is similar in the sense that we're attempting to demonstrate that from this point of view, we live many lifetimes, or what's known as reincarnation, and that your astrology chart is said to be your spiritual report card in the school of life, and therefore indicating to what extent you have been in alignment or attunement positively with spiritual laws and principles, that then imply in this life your natural gifts, talents, and abilities. And also, either out of ignorance or egoic self-will, where an individual in their prior lifetimes, through their attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors, have not demonstrated a consciousness of consideration and attunement, if you will, even morally, to a more harmonious relationship with the world, and possibly even a turbulent or adversarial relationship with the world, which is a person's hard karma, and where this can be the leading edge of their personal growth and healing in this life that can transform that energy into a very positive upliftment for themselves and the world. So that's a foundation for the basis for especially a reading like this, where I'm now looking at the natal chart of JD Vance. And we want to see, well, what is JD Vance really all about? You know, I have employers and managers and professionals contact me to do the chart of people they're considering hiring for a job or considering for a professional position, to actually see what potential they have towards a positivity in their expression, as well as whether they really have the gift or talent for that job or profession, and whether the timing is right, and whether they're compatible with that employer or its organization. So that's, in a sense, what we're doing here. So JD Vance is a Leo. A Leo is a person who is, your sun sign is meant to be what you're here to evolve, not necessarily express quite regularly. A Leo is someone who's here to evolve personal confidence and leadership potential, and express a charisma that may inspire others, hopefully in alignment with positive moral or ethical legal behaviors. Now, I'm going to move to the chart of the United States. You've heard me discuss what is the most paramount issue for the United States, considered astrologically at this time in our country's evolution. And I have used this point from all my videos, and there have been a good 4 or 5 of them discussing Trump and Biden, and as well the possible replacements to Biden. And so when looking at this chart of the United States, we see that the Pluto position at 27 degrees Capricorn, that position in anyone's chart doesn't really, the planet Pluto doesn't actually come back to that position in your lifetime. Pluto is so far out in the solar system, even some astronomers don't consider it a planet anymore, but it certainly has astrological significance. It takes roughly 240 years to go around the natal chart of an individual or a country, in this case, to return to its birth position. It just so happens we are in that roughly 240-year period. And so in a horoscope, when Pluto returns to its natal position, and we have what we call a Plutonian horoscope transformation, we look at the chart of the United States. And what does the chart of the United States say about Pluto? Well, on the one hand, Pluto is trining Neptune in the natal chart. So what that implies is that the United States, with Pluto in the house of money, business, finance, and economics, trining Neptune near the midheaven, is meant to be a transformational catalyst in the world for economic democracy that facilitates a compassionate approach to humanity vis-a-vis the involvement in this country in social welfare as well as in assistance throughout the world to help promote the upliftment of the masses of people towards better and more viable economic opportunity. On the other hand, the Mercury in the eighth house of shared economic resources and investment dynamics, opposite Pluto, implies that this country was founded on a rebellion against the economic exploitation of the King of England and the wealthy elite of the British, who were inclined to want to exploit the resources and the well-being and control of the colonies of America. So the Mercury opposition in the chart of the United States implies a continuous struggle between forces that want to divide, conquer, and exploit for their more greedy inclination to exploit divisions for their profit and greater gain and control of economic resources, which sometimes is called a plutocracy. And we see in recent times the continuous consolidation of wealth amongst the billionaire class and corporations, and the diminishing ability and opportunities for the middle class. And so essentially, this is the second American Revolution as to whether or not an elite oligarchy is evolving a plutocracy that consolidates wealth and uses that wealth for manipulation and control of political power, or whether, like the Patriots of 1776, no taxation without representation, and the throwing of the tea into the harbor in Massachusetts by the colonist revolutionaries to say, we're not going to take it anymore. And it is time to restore democracy, have the wealthy elite billionaire class pay their share for the use of the economic resources of the United States and open the political process to the working and middle class to further social welfare. So that's the basis for how I look at these political candidates. Do they contribute to the positivity of the evolution of democracy and growth of social welfare for the middle class? Or does that candidate support the continuous consolidation of wealth in an oligarchical plutocracy? So when we look at the chart of JD Vance, we do know he comes from a modest background, but so did Adolf Hitler, you know. And I have to point out that the Saturn in Scorpio squaring the sun is called the Napoleonic complex. It's a similar aspect that Napoleon, who became the dictatorial emperor of France for a period of time, and Adolf Hitler had Saturn in Leo in a square to his Taurus planets. But a Saturn square, especially to a person's sun sign, implies someone who comes from a karma of if you will, somewhat of a case-hardened ego that is driven potentially through extraordinary hard work and effort, and or sometimes through ruthless and unscrupulous efforts to climb the socioeconomic ladder to attain positions of wealth, status, and power. This is the core of JD Vance's chart. Now, we look at other planetary positions to see if there are mitigating dynamics to that kind of incredible ego drive. And relentless ambition. And what I look to first is Venus. Because Venus is the planet of love. And it implies to what extent the soul and their karmic past lifetime experience has had to a certain extent of empathy, compassion, care, and understanding of true spiritual sensibilities for a positive upliftment for humanity more in general, as well as their own personal and or individual organizational interests. Well, when we look at the Venus position, 23 degrees Leo, that's in the Aries segment of Leo, implies a very strong self-will and self-interest and charismatic initiative for one's own drive and ambitions. And we see it's in a square to Mars in Scorpio. So we also see that Venus is in a trine to Neptune. So people are complex. There's one side of JD Vance that has had a karma of deep, compassionate empathy for the problems and concerns of people in general and or the humanitarian concern and care for others. And on the other hand, has had a very selfish oriented towards his own personal recognition and upliftment as a powerful and acknowledged member of society. Mars square Venus implies someone who can have a very insidious kind of sarcastic or cutting way of challenging other people, and especially in a derogatory or diminishing way. So I think we've seen some of that in his behavior. And as much as he may have a certain kind of religious, ideological sensitivity with his Venus trine Neptune, the dominant challenge for him in this life is this Saturn square to his sun, which is also dualistically in a trine to the planet Uranus. So he has two very distinct sides to him. One, the Uranian trine implies a sincere and charismatic interest in a progressive or an uplifting humanitarian orientation politically. And on the other hand, Saturn in Scorpio, if he uh, engages or indulges his egoic side for power, ruthless desire for, and relentless ambition to attain positions of power. Saturn in Scorpio can be extraordinarily undermining, secretive, and exploitative towards whatever tactic, such that the ends justify the means. So we'll note he's born on a Thursday. He's born in the year of the wood rat in Chinese astrology, and his destiny number is 5. So the 5 is the destiny of someone who is here to be have an adventurous life with many changes and experimentations with his identity, to evolve to be an authoritative communicator. And the year of the rat and born on a Thursday implies that he's here to be a leader and or strong service professional in kind of a ministerial style. Now, the question here is and we'll look at him in terms of Donald Trump, but in terms of the chart of the United States, his Leo planets are in the area of the chart associated with international relations and dynamics of economic resources. And yet, we're looking to see, how does he complement the chart of the United States? Well, his Saturn in Scorpio does trine the sun. That implies he can have a strong impact on the identity, expression, and direction of the United States from a political economic point of view, even a leadership position. He has Neptune 29 in a square, he has Pluto in a square to the Pluto of the United States and a square to the Mercury. That implies that he can actually be a catalyst for either direction, the plutocracy or the democracy, and in regards to the issues currently facing the United States. His Mars in Scorpio does lend favorably to the Mercury of the United States. And so that does tend to lend towards him supporting more the plutocracy than the middle class inclinations for economic democracy. And we also see here that his Mercury in Virgo, which implies he has a critical mind. We see in his chart here that his Mercury does aspect Saturn. That is often that of a politician and a strategist, and how he may communicate on a daily basis. That is in a favorable aspect to the Jupiter of the United States. So it can imply that the exposition of his positions politically or economically can complement a certain plurality of the cultural milieu of Republicans or conservatives in this country. Now, lastly, I'll point out that his moon position is also adverse to the Mercury and Pluto positions of the chart of the United States. So you combine that with his Pluto, natal Pluto position, and the implication is that his personal life and sensibility for his connection with pluralities of society do not necessarily lend towards policies that favor a more equitable distribution of wealth and or communicate an equitable sensibility for the uh, constructive development of democratic principles for the upliftment of the middle class. And the fact that his position of Neptune at 29 Sagittarius in a adverse aspect to the Neptune of the United States and the Neptune opposite the Mars of the United States implies that he can be somewhat of a chameleon or someone who may adapt his message and his identity or his positions in ways that are contrary to or undermining the democratic or favorable mainstream principles for democratic process. So now we're going to move on to the chart of JD. Well, we finished that. We're going to move on to the chart of Tim Walz and his relationship to the chart of the United States. We now have the chart of Tim Walz and the chart of the United States again, with the planetary positions of Tim Walz's natal chart in the outer circle. So we'll start as I would with any client in terms of life purpose themes. We've talked about JD Vance being born in the year of the rat in Chinese astrology, the wood rat. And I never mentioned that people born in the year of the rat, and he's born on a Thursday, are here to cultivate hopefully an ethical, moral, and philosophically uplifting ministry to the world. Now, Tim Walz is born on a Monday, and as much as Thursday is Jupiter Day for JD, Tim Walz born on a Monday, that's Moon Day. That relates to a theme related to the moon. And when people are born on Moon Day, it implies they are, or they have a calling, at least if they aren't naturally, somewhat sensitive and caring people. They are people who are inclined to want to be kind of shepherds, if you will, uh, people who want to empower and or uplift others in some way, to be in kind of social service, if you will, or political positions that enhance opportunity for everyday people for their upliftment. Whereas the Thursday person, the Jupiter based rat, uh, is more sometimes self righteously inclined to want to uh, minister or communicate positions that they strongly believe are ideologically correct or morally positive for an imposition on to others. Or they could be people who have an egalitarian openness in teaching universal principles. But we're back to Tim Walz here, and he is born not only on Moon Day, but the sixth day of the month. That is, in numerology, every day in the month, any month, has a symbolism. And the sixth day is the day, in fact, of the community activist. It's the day of those who are here to evolve their caring, considerate, compassionate abilities in ways that support, uplift, and benefit social welfare. Next, we note that he's born in the same Chinese year as Kamala Harris, 1964, the year of the dragon. But you add those numbers together, 1 and 9 is 10, plus 6 is 16, and 4 is 20, and you get a 2 as a derivation. The theme of 1964 is that of those who can use their powerful strength, sensitivity, perceptivity, and intelligence for cultivating and advancing social consciousness. Now, yet, this is a great year for the both of them because we are currently in the Chinese year of the dragon. And so that bodes well, especially in contrast to the Chinese year of birth of Donald Trump, who was born in the year of the fire dog. And the worst of the 12 Chinese years portending progress or success for someone born in the year of the dog is the year of the dragon. And in fact, in relationship compatibility, someone born in the year of the dog is going to have less than a 10% chance, if that, of being compatible with a person born in the year of the dragon. So we've got the premier clash here. Two dragons against a dog and a rat. So back to Tim. He is in Aries. So he's a fire sign, and he's an initiator, a self-starter, and someone who can be inspirational. These are attributes of Aries. And he's the opposite sign of Kamala Harris, who's a Libra. Opposites attract. They can complement each other. So his chart shows that he has an, an infectious enthusiasm with his Mars also in Aries and a Jupiter also in Aries, the two planets that are about drive, initiative, energy, and expansive inclinations. Uh, these are all most correlative to someone born in the year of the dragon, because the dragon is someone who has a strong sense of personal power, but even more so, a strong sense of mission in this life and knows when their intelligence and skills are applied properly, morally, or ethically, they can be a powerhouse for leadership and positive direction in the world. Now, contrary to JD Vance, who had Saturn in a square to his sun sign, and I talked about the Napoleonic complex. Walz has Saturn in Pisces in a sextile to Mercury and Jupiter, and it's kind of split between them. So the Saturn sextile Mercury implies someone who has a natural strategic planning organizational ability. Mercury in Taurus, that of someone who's desires to use their communication skills expressively for a practical purpose that can affect the resources of society. And he was a school teacher. It's the premier position for a school teacher because the Mercury and Jupiter implies someone who wants to use their knowledge, information, and intelligence in a practical way that can instruct and uplift and empower others. And that's what a Saturn in Pisces aspecting Jupiter and Mercury shows someone who has had a moral compass, an ethical compass, and sensibility in their prior lifetimes and has a good karma for hard work and perseverance, for meritoriously uplifting themselves professionally through the integrity of their communications. And next, we note that his moon in Aquarius implies that's the residual of accumulated character and personality he brings into this life. Moon and Aquarius are natural, organizational, social humanitarians. And he has that aspect to the Uranus, which is the ruler of Aquarius. So it implies that he has a natural instinct to want to impact society at large in a the moon sense, the sense of uh, uplifting the day-to-day domestic community health, social welfare, and environment of society. But more so, he has a deeply caring personal character. Unlike JD Vance, who had that Venus adverse aspect to Mars, which shows he could sometimes be quite a calculating yet bitter uh, critic of others. He has Moon trining Venus, which is the character of someone who just has great social, tactful, and cultivated diplomatic personality skills in a community, organizational, and public related environment. Now, he does have Venus in an adverse angle to Saturn, but the difference is Venus square Saturn tend to be people who are workaholics, people who may tend to deprive their own personal needs maybe too much to their job, their career, or their work. And so their marital partner or their significant others may feel or experience a certain deprivation of their presence or involvement due to their deeper love and attachment to their career and their job. Now, he also has the Venus square Uranus, which implies that he is a guy who thrives on variety of experience. And his destiny number, by the way, is 3. That's by adding the numbers of his birthday, 4, 6 plus 1964. And so it reduces to a number 3. J.D. Vance was a 5, you may recall. The number 3 is a number of the charismatic, socially adaptive, and inspirationally uplifting character of communication for creative expression and social empowerment. And so this Venus T-square of his does show how he has just had an ambitious upliftment in the context of professional development as a school teacher, as an officer in the National Guard for 24 years, as a politician, starting on the local level, then becoming a congressman, and eventually governor of Minnesota. So this is a guy who has a natural drive as someone born on a Monday and a 6th for service to the country and a service to society that he senses empowers and strengthens the average middle class or working class person. Now, in relationship to the chart of the United States, we see here that his moon position is right here in the area of the chart of economics and the resources of the United States. Now, I'd like to mention, I haven't pointed this out, but in his birth or natal chart, his moon in Aquarius is in a favorable angle to Mars, which shows, again, his inclination to be a self-starter, an initiator, and has a drive for inspiration for the environment, the resources, and the social welfare of average persons, the middle class, if you will. And so we see that moon, same moon here in the chart of the United States, favoring the humanitarian inclination for the uplifting or empowering others for a meritorious advancement in our economy. And we also point out that his Saturn in Pisces, in the area of local community politics, is in a trine to the Venus of the United States, which further implies his political positions tend to have an ethical inclination for social welfare and a democratic approach to economic development. But we also want to look at that Mercury-Pluto issue associated with democracy versus plutocracy and the crisis that's currently challenging the United States. And what we see here is his sun sign, well, even more so his Jupiter. Jupiter there in Aries is in a direct connection to the Mars of the United States, favoring, a favorable cultural direction for the activity or action orientation of the United States militarily or constructively in the world. Yet his Jupiter is squaring the Mercury Pluto. So in his case, unlike JD Vance, and I should point out that, remember, in JD Vance's chart, he has Pluto at 29 degrees Libra, which is essentially directly opposite the Jupiter of Tim Walz. And so, whereas JD Vance Pluto implies a challenge, a turbulent challenge to the economic, political, and cultural experience in the United States at this time, that could support the plutocracy. So he's the Plutonian. J.D. Vance is the Jupiterian, the inclination to want to uplift, expand, and evolve in a way that follows more of an ethical and empowering possibility. In the 5th house of the United States, that is the character well-being of the average person. Now, we also note that his Mars and his Sun are in Aries in the fourth house of the United States. And the fourth house has to do with home, family, the bread and butter of uh, middle America and the domestic well-being, from food prices to gas prices to everyday lifestyle and the environment. And his Mars at 6 degrees Aries is in a sextile aspect to Uranus, favoring that activism or political action associated with healthcare and the environment. And his Mercury is at 6 degrees, directly connected to the Jupiter and somewhat connected to the Sun sign. And so that implies his communication style and inclinations lend towards supporting the more mainstream, day-to-day, local style of culture and communication and economic well-being, as well as the medical institutions of society. So lastly here, we see that his Uranus also complements his Mercury, and that is, of course, I've shared his intelligence for political, social, humanitarian activism in communication. And so not only does the Mercury aspect favorably the Jupiter, Venus, and Sun, but his Uranus and Pluto directly in Virgo, which is the combination of those who have in this lifetime a strong political, economic, and transformational inclination to uplift progressively the environmental and healthcare conditions of society. And that very powerful combination is directly affecting the Sun, Jupiter, and Venus. So this implies that Tim Walz is the kind of being who definitely complements the chart of the United States in a way that very fundamentally addresses the day-to-day life experience of the average American, and would tend to have a natural perceptivity and understanding of how to communicate to these people and communicate policies that would tend to truly promote a more equitable economic and environmental, as well as medical or social welfare policies. Now, again, this may sound like an endorsement. It's not. This is just an interpretation of these combinations. But Tim Walz, in my opinion, was an excellent choice. So my next video will look at the combination of Donald Trump and JD Vance, their relationship and their potential electability, and compared to that of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, their compatibility and electability. So stay tuned for that upcoming video. And if you did appreciate this video, please do click the like button. If you'd like to be notified and follow on many of my upcoming videos on interesting politicians and celebrities and others as expositions of the truth of how astrology reveals each person's unique soul growth mission in this life, please do subscribe. And for those who might be interested in the uh, free introductory reading. I'm going to post again my contact information. And please do contact me at the email address indicated, altazarastrology@gmail.com, or go to my website and look at the multiple variety of astrology readings I do, from astro mapping of the entire world for locations that might be auspicious for your job, career, or vacation, or cultural upliftment. And relationship compatibility is one of my specialties, as well as your life purpose, karma, and healing and personal growth issues. So please do contact me via one of these avenues of contact. And I look forward to hearing from those of you interested. Be well.